They use people. The same way that God uses people, the kingdom of death uses people as well. And they do this through whatever opening you give them. And because they operate through chaos, confusion, destruction, manipulation, lies, restricting free will, cause you some kind of temporary illusion, like put you in the fog, like a sneak attack, essentially. But you don't even know that you're in it, unless you're healed, unless you're self-actualized, unless you have a free-thinking mind, unless you are closer with God than you are with anyone. That's why I always teach people, you have to build from the inside out. And no matter what shame, what fear you're holding on to, ultimately, that fear will be used against you. It will be used against you. Of the really kind of more broad ways, but it's deep programming that's being built into people like over many generations, is the spirit of prejudice. A group of people can demonize another group of people and message through fear. They are actually essentially isolating you, what it is. But this is why I'm always very guarded towards people who hold a prejudice towards another group of people. It truly does not matter what it is. It really doesn't matter to me. Race, religion, sex, like, it doesn't matter what it is. None of that, to me, would ever cause me any fear. That is creating a separation within them. So you can see right away how that would make it easier for me to see into the spirit, to be able to observe the spirit within someone. If I myself have made the choice, my sovereign choice, to take down the veil over my eyes of any prejudice that I would have. Now, I've never carried the spirit of prejudice ever in my life. You could also call this the spirit of judgment, right? I don't judge people based on superficiality, based on things of the flesh. I know that that would be a weakness to me. To me. Right away, that's going to give me an advantage over somebody who carries a prejudice. So when you're observing anything, removing whatever would be considered a prejudice will help you see into the spirit of a person and see their intentions behind whatever it is that you're trying to examine about a person. Let's break this down in terms of like political. So you got Democrats and Republicans, okay? There's just this constant back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Some people, if they have their own prejudice within themselves, would observe me as a liberal. Some people might perceive me as a conservative person. That is about the prejudice that they hold, though. They are the ones who need a physical label to be able to come up with some kind of assessment. I don't need that. Basing something on the quality of their character, of their spirit. Use that prejudice as an excuse, as a crutch, as a justification, but also as protection. So if somebody feels like if I mask with being a Democrat, that gives me permission to behave this way. If I am associated with MAGA or the Republicans, then that gives me an excuse to behave this way. I can behave whatever way I want because I'm using the leverage, I'm using the mask that I'm wearing, a prejudice that I know would protect me, would give me an advantage over somebody, would give me a step up over other people. But in all actuality, it doesn't, because you can never conceal the quality of your character. So just a really quick example of this, a while back, maybe about a year ago or so, there was, I think it was a Republican, I want to say she was a congressperson, maybe a son, I don't know who this person was, okay? They had some affiliation to MAGA, okay? And they had a confrontation with somebody inside of the cosmetic section of the store or whatever. And it'd be really funny if one of these people I mentioned is directly affiliated to attacking me, since I know that there's some kind of DOJ affiliation here and political something or another. But like that's the point that I'm making, though, because they have the ability to create such wide, broad illusions that are principalities. Person ended up, I don't remember exactly what the interaction was, but like it was like a pretty, I don't know, it was somebody who I think was associated with MAGA and recognized this politician in the store or whatever and asked like a reasonable question, like wasn't even, I don't think, being rude or anything like that. Like she totally went off on him and started like dogging him for the way that he was dressed, and then made some kind of like underhanded passive aggressive like association with like his like if he was gay or something like that. Like I don't remember exactly what the interaction was, but it was so wholly inappropriate. And for a second there, you could see the quality of this person's character, right? But because she holds herself in a position where she feels like she's protected by this mask that she wears of like of being like a Republican or a MAGA or something like that excuses her behavior. Well, no, it really shouldn't excuse her behavior. And even more so to her own political party, it shouldn't excuse her behavior. You know, you see, there was like this thing where somebody was attacked for wearing a MAGA hat on a subway or something like that. And it's like this physical violence, just attacking somebody for the way that they're dressed. And then they were using the excuse of being a liberal, being a Democrat. It's like they attacked this person because of what they had on, what they were wearing. So that is not an excuse. And automatically you can see this because when somebody is trying to conceal something or when they're wearing a mask, they're always going to go for superficiality. They're always going to go for a way that a person is dressed. They're always going to go for like whatever prejudice that person has. Why? Because they're grabbing a hold of that prejudice within you, because they're trying to trigger that prejudice within you to pull you in. They want to pull you in, but see, you would have to hold that prejudice. You would have to give them an opening yourself, right? So somebody like myself who doesn't carry the spirit of judgment, doesn't carry any prejudices, you're not going to be able to weaponize like any prejudice against me. You're not going to have that doorway. That's not going to be an open doorway, and I'm going to be able to see you more clearly, or see anybody who is using something very superficial, something of the flesh, something of the world, something worldly, whether it's, again, finances, the color of somebody's skin, their political party, their socioeconomic status, like their education level. That has nothing to do with the quality of one's spirit. They themselves will try to use demonic forces to create a prejudice within you. Right? Just giving the example of what a Jezebel spirit will do to a divine feminine, like a truly divine feminine, sacred mother. You can see this happens all the time. They will try to create or bring into the energy of a sacred feminine narcissistic men. Make it so they try to create this prejudice against men within me. Like they want to drive this narrative that I don't like men because I've been aligned to a lot of narcissists. But the thing is like they've never been able to capture me because I know the difference between a good man and a shitty man. I already know the difference, and I have a sovereign mind of God. Like, you're not going to be able to change that about me. So I'm going to disarm anybody who is going to try to use an entire generalization that, okay, right now I've taken that weapon away from them. And I've armed myself with knowing I'm not going to carry a prejudice. I'm not going to judge all men. They want to generate this idea of like, it's all about status, it's all about money, it's about the clothes, it's about the hair, it's about the look. You're a piece of shit if you can't provide for me. Like, they're not going to be talking about it. Like, rich people don't flex that they're rich. Wealthy people don't flex that they're wealthy. They don't need to. Again, any prejudice that somebody is trying to use, they're trying to use against you for an ulterior motive. And especially with men, this is so important to understand. Okay, look at these wealthy men that are, when we're talking about, you know, SRA and these cults and these very large principalities, these very ancient principalities, and, you know, all of the secret societies and this like bullshit they're just like so desperate to continue to be able to push. If you don't have a prejudice, or if they're trying to create an opening within you, they're trying to create a doorway to you, this boss babe career, whatever, or even the other way, like the trad wife, where all of these women are like absolutely miserable, like where you're just good for cooking or making a baby, trying to diminish and devalue the sacred feminine. You want to create this whole narrative that is all based off of superficiality. None of it is real. None of it is real. But they want to create that prejudice within that sacred feminine, right? Because that's why they stalk you. The whole like ritualistic, like what's going on around me right now is like literally this desperation to be able to come up with some justification for why they're holding on to my money, why they perjured themselves in court, why they stole from me, like all of the extreme abuse that I have been put through, especially with the people with the justice system who continue to not do their job. Because they took that action, they were being demonically controlled. Not me, them. Keep the feminine, or keep the sacred, the divine energy low, because in their mind, they're able to harvest that energy. If they create the trauma, they believe that they can harvest the energy of sadness, of trauma, of fear. They just objectify the sacred feminine. But it's a projection of the people that they already have in bondage, or the flying monkeys. But in order to be a flying monkey, it means you would have to be orbiting that demonic spirit yourself. It's not the target that's being affected by that demonic energy. They wouldn't be targeting that person if they already had that person, right? And so they're going to be working, especially with me, because, my rank, my spiritual wealth, and because they're losers, they're pathetic. Like, you're literally pathetic. This shit is so pathetic. I can't even, I can't. You have, especially these old school, weirdo rituals that, the human movers and stuff like that my mom's a part of. Like, when you're actually a part of, sacrificing your own family and shit because you're disgusting and you should be in prison. Okay, and you should be exposed already. They infiltrate families. They have to have a connection to you to attempt to curse you. But they already know they can't truly curse you. This is biblical. Read the Bible. Okay, God is the only one who can truly curse someone. That's how I know all of you are screwed. Because you have to come into agreement with the energy. Okay, even Dracula knows this. Okay? You have to essentially give them the invitation in. But the invitation isn't going to be oh, hey, I'm going to take your soul. I'm going to disrupt your family. I'm going to corrupt your marriage. I'm going to take all your money. It isn't that obvious. It's very subtle. It's very covert. But what they're using is your prejudices, your poverty mindset, your codependency, your whatever it is. Even if you don't understand the difference between unconditional love and transactional, they'll use that against you as well. To use their little network to look for whomever they can, potentially align to this person that they're targeting to create this decrease or sacrifice in their energy. Now, you got to remember, this is all about their perception. So if one narc doesn't work, they'll send in another narc. And they'll pay these people behind the scenes. These are essentially the honeypots or whatever, to come in and essentially abuse that person, to break their heart, to lower their vibration, or to attach an entity to them. Okay? They've never been successful, ever once. I'm sure it is literally melting them from the inside out. But see, that curse was already broken years ago. 5 years ago, the last trauma bond I broke, that curse was broken. So this is what makes my mother especially stupid, ignorant. My ex, Nick Edelberg, and his wife, Shelby Edelberg, this is what makes them completely dumb in my destiny. But you can see, because they're infiltrated with a demon, anybody that they can drag in, plant a seed of fear. This is why my mom went triple time on the gossip. This is why she had to go around to my entire community, my children's schools, calling my children's health providers and all of that, but also trying to then curse my children because she already knew she wasn't going to be successful with me. So this is why she had to really work hard on my ex's NPC ego to try to drag him in. But again, it's not affecting me. I'm just standing in truth. Because eventually, the mask always drops, right? You cannot break the law. Like, what they've taken is like breaking laws in the physical world. This is not spiritual anymore. Because they took this action once that curse was broken, I'd already broken that trauma bond. They're in the stronghold, they're in the bondage, so that is going to manifest in bondage in the physical world. You're the ones in bondage, not me. I don't need help spiritually. I already broke my chains, I already broke those curses. If you're allowing a seed of fear to be planted in you based on whatever superficial bullshit, whatever lack mentality, whatever lust, whatever fear you're holding, whatever addiction you're holding, and they're going to go double time with this because they don't want it, whatever the repercussion is, whatever the consequence is going to manifest into the physical world. Now, in this case, because you dumb fucks stole my identity and you're still holding onto my money, you traumatized and abused my children, all of you. There's going to be a consequence in the physical world. But being in fear of that consequence is how they keep a stronghold on you. It's how you continue to be affected by the voodoo. Because this particular group is so disgusting, you're so dark, you're so demonically controlled, that not only are they trying to go so far out of their way to create continued trauma and like this illusion of isolation. There's no such thing as an outcast for a divine being, okay? Let me just put this out here to you, okay? You have the demonic energy all in bondage, like in some kind of stronghold of like secrecy, illusions, like let's do this shit in the shadows, and like they will even try to keep that separation by saying like, oh, this is a war against light and dark, we have to win. Like they will intentionally use your prejudice. If they convince you that you're dark, that you're demonic, that you have to carry on the bloodline, you have to provide for all of us, they're trying to use your codependency against you. They're trying to use whatever fear. And in this case, I'm sure, like, but it's because you're all in bondage. Like, I realized there was a root here, and obviously quite a bit of lies told. Like, my ex, Nick Edelberg, and his wife should be absolutely disgusted with themselves because they affected a lot of people here. Like, you actually affected a lot of people with your lies. But that was their sovereign individual choice. And if anybody should have made a different choice, it should have been Nick Edelberg. Because he was entrusted with our child. I trusted him with our child. I trusted him to not hurt our child. Our child trusted him. And he has broken that trust with our child, regardless of what he wants to like continue to deny or delusionally believe. This would apply for anybody who uses a child like a pawn or as a weapon. In a court case, when you're separating a child from their other parent, when you're trying to plant seeds of fear in your child, when you're trying to put medication in their food, when you're trying to give them sleeping medication, when you're trying to control their language and put so much fear in them that they're responsible for what's happening to their mother, that is a demon. And I know this because my mother tried to do the same thing with me, with my father. The pattern is recognized. Like, why anybody would continue to buy into it when it's this obvious, I don't know. Especially law officials. I really don't know. But because I'm already aware that they're holding on to my money and my child, and they're trying to avoid the consequences of their actions. They want to like push their karma off onto other people or onto me. No matter how hard you gaslight, it really doesn't matter. When somebody doesn't hold the spirit of judgment or the spirit of prejudice, you don't have any addictions, there's nothing they can use against you. So if they're trying to create that by, creating a prejudice within you, like making me hate all men because my mother has aligned with old crusty dusties that are part of their little old network that God is bringing down because they're casting their final judgment. These demons are done with. God doesn't need them anymore. Doesn't need them. Their role here is done. It's time for them to go to the lake of fire and literally burn in hell for what they have done to many children. Many, many children. And you can choose to stay in that bondage with them, knowing where they're headed. Or you can take the lesson. You could take the consequence, release your fear, and become a better person. Be redeemed. Accept the forgiveness, the grace, and the mercy that's been offered to you. If you're still breathing, it's been offered to you. But whatever you hold is going to be used against you. And the dark forces are going to continue to try to infiltrate your home, your family. And if you have codependency, if you want to be blind, and finances can be used against you, status can be used against you, whatever position you have, your political affiliation, your religious affiliation, if they can use that against you and hold on to that, keep you in bondage, keep you in shame, it's used against you, not other people, you. So interestingly enough, when I first started my awakening, one of the first lessons God put me through, now, even though I had read the Bible and I'd read chapters and verses of the Bible, I'd heard many chapters and verses of the Bible throughout my whole life. I was baptized in the Catholic Church and went to PSR, was an altar girl for a little bit. I definitely had some awareness of the Bible and had experience in reading scripture and reading the word. But because my eyes had not been opened yet, because God had not taken me down that path, I wasn't reading it and wasn't being guided by God through the Word of God. You start to mature spiritually, and you start to read the Word of God through your spiritual eyes, through your spiritual ears, through your intuition. It literally guides you through the Word. And that's when it becomes like a blueprint. It becomes your manual for getting through what I didn't know at the time was going to be this man-made, crazy-ass spiritual warfare created by a bunch of psychopaths who wanted to steal from me. But you see how amazing God is? The glory of God, just that alone, the way that I came across the Bible in the dollar store and all of that, I don't know how much of this was set up because, this little weirdo Truman Show, snuff shit, this whole false reality that's been painted all around me is complete and utter bullshit. It's just, what is just so annoying at this point is what is the point of what you're doing? It's not going to be successful for you. You're literally creating your own pain and making somebody else sit and making other people around you be held in fear. There's just literally no point to any of this. You're not winning shit, and you will face the consequences. And if you have to face final judgment and end up in the ground, then that's what's going to happen here. For anybody who continues to stand in my way, you think God's going to harm a humanitarian who's literally survived all this bullshit? You think bad is going to come to me? No, it's not. No, it's not. Do you think bad's going to come to the people who have been praying for a blessing that's supposed to be delivered through me? No, that doesn't even make sense. Use your logic that you claim to have. But when I came across that, understanding and being guided to learn first about Abraham, ironically, and so many people have weaponized the story of Abraham version of this, which suits whatever their intention is. I was seeing the name Abraham, I had never come across the name Abraham before. I was I would hear it scrolling social media. I met 2 people named Abraham. It's everywhere I was going, it's it kept coming up. When you see things through the eyes of God, you know that this is another way that God protects us. Because until you understand this concept, what I'm going to share with you right now, you have an open door. So this is how God protects those of divinity. This is how he makes people righteous. Because you would have to understand this. You would have to be able to decode this part. When God told Abraham to bring his son for the sacrifice, no hesitation. And when he gets to the top of the mountain, there's an alternate there. You had faith. You kept your promise. The land, which is now Israel, all of the generations to follow Abraham would inherit their divine wealth, the promises of God. People do not understand that what God was testing in Abraham, essentially, what he was asking of Abraham, is to sacrifice his fear. Sacrifice his fear of being judged by his family. Sacrifice his fear of not having enough money. Sacrificing his fear of not being able to build on a solid foundation, on a rock. Because what God was going to give him was a seed, hence the child. His child. God would never ask Abraham to sacrifice his seed, because his seed was what was going to be planted in unconditional love, because God is love. What he was testing in Abraham, faith in love, because he was going to give him a seed to plant in a new land that wasn't cursed with love. That is the only energy, one God of love, that will ever continue to grow in abundance. It's the only eternal energy. It's the only true binding energy. Unconditional love. A lot of these older cultures don't always tell you the preface of where Abraham came from. They don't want you to know that God had asked Abraham specifically because he came from a land of deity worship, of idolaters, of cursed land that wasn't going to grow abundant. You can see why people perverse and weaponize this understanding of like Abraham sacrificing his child, right? Believe it or not, a Catholic church, the one I was baptized in, when God guided me about a year ago to go back to that church, I just so happened to encounter the most beautiful priest, willing to sit and have a conversation with me because of my humility, because of my gratitude, because of my recognition that it was not the church's fault. It is not the Catholic religion. It's not their fault that my mother has chosen to behave in a wicked way. But also, he had tremendous respect for the separation that I was making. You see that? It was all unconditional. And so he offered up to me quite a bit of truth about a lot of things. In particular, about the Jesuit Society. And my understanding of that group of people and their false doctrines. But mainly because if they had faith, if they had sacrificed their fear, they wouldn't have to sacrifice anything else. If they weren't of the world, if they weren't using other people's prejudices, if they weren't practicing witchcraft, even through gossip, if they weren't creating those seeds of fear, they wouldn't have them to plant into other people. They wouldn't have to put you in the bondage of your culture, your society. They wouldn't be trying to imprint their fear onto you, their prejudice onto you. That is bondage. That's chains they want to keep you in so that you're not abundant. So that you're not abundant. Now, whatever the ulterior motive, and a lot of times it does come back down to money, because the root of all evil ultimately is the attachment to money. Money is the number one way in which they control other people. So you see again why God, Abraham, he had to sacrifice all that fear. He was leaving his family, his land, his entire culture. You didn't think he was going to be judged? And to the people within that, they might have thought Abraham was being exiled, right? They might have thought Abraham was being outcast. How much presence does Abraham's father have in the Word of God? Not much. Not much. There's a reason for that. That's because Abraham was not exiled. He was following one God. And he inherited generational wealth. He inherited the promises of God and the land of Israel. And so the heirs of that land, the chosen children, the heirs of Abraham, are those that are in a covenant with love, in a covenant with God, who understand the blood of that covenant is thicker than the water of the womb that they came through. You cannot break a covenant with God. You cannot break the heirs to Abraham's throne. It's very interesting how all of this has played out with my child, though, also. And finding out, that I actually do come from an Abraham is pretty crazy, too, huh? Whole thing's really wild. That I would be the first daughter of faith. That God would guide me through that understanding. And those things, you can't create an illusion around that. I had to live through this. This is my lived experience. I couldn't make this shit up if I wanted to. Fear is control. Fear creates hate. It creates divides. Love does not. Love is eternal. It is immortal. This is why there's such an attack on divine feminines, on divine masculines. This is why there's this intentional effort to blackmail them, to set them up, to put them into poverty, to falsely imprison them. I mean, look how far these weirdos have gone. This shit is so crazy. It's wild. And if I'm a little bit annoyed on certain days, I already know that I already have the victory. I've been at that mountain. I already received my flowers. I've already been throned. You can't take me off my throne when I'm already there. And you also can't take away somebody else's fear that they're choosing to hold on to. That they want you to try, because that would be codependency. I want you to see who actually is holding those chains and holding you back. Choosing to not be forgiven. Choosing. Because Jesus asked God for people to be forgiven. He asked God. Does it say in the Bible that anybody who chose to be demonic, to practice black magic and voodoo, were automatically forgiven? Manual about what it actually means to be redeemed and forgiven. And typically that includes stopping the behavior that you're doing. And once you are redeemed and forgiven, the wound is closed. It's not there anymore. You're walking yourself off that cliff. You're choosing to be the alternate when you are holding on to fear still. That's the only goal. They want you to marry for money. They want to be able to pick your partners for you. They want to tie you down to a religion, a culture, a society. And I'm not saying don't have those things, because again, I don't carry the spirit of judgment. Somebody came to me and was like, this person's a Jew, let's attack them. This person's a Muslim, let them attack them. I would tell them to kindly fuck all the way off and never talk to me again. I literally can't stand people like that, because it's like, you're so obvious in what you're trying to do here. That's your prejudice. That's your prejudice. I don't attack people because of their beliefs. If they were choosing to attack me, if they were choosing to project some shit onto me, then that's a horse of a different color. But I'm not going to allow them to use their culture and their beliefs, their prejudice against me. Right? It's like, if you are a Mormon, let's say, for example, and you're attacking me, you're a Scientologist and you're attacking me, I never came into agreement with your damn prejudice, so what the hell are you attacking me for? I'm not a part of your culture. What the hell are you attacking me for? Because I worship Jesus Christ? No, that's not why you're attacking me. You're attacking me because you are infiltrated with demonic energy, with dark energy. And that's yours. That's yours to deal with. There is a God that can help you with that. If you want to be in my energy, if you want to be a part of my kingdom that I'm a part of, then you're going to have to take accountability for that. People think that expression of emotions is a bad thing. No, God gave me my emotions. God gave me feelings for a reason. It's your choice to hold on to the programming that you're not supposed to have feelings or emotions. I express my feelings and emotions very authentically and freely, because I don't hold that fear within me. I don't want something to turn into something that has me seeing the world through an illusion of a prejudice, through a red flag. I've given this lesson many times. People have a really hard time with this concept. I don't worry about red flags. I don't see red flags in people. But because I see people through their spirit, I don't need to look for a red flag. I'm not going to project a wound that I'm still holding onto other people. Because if you're looking for red flags, that's what you're doing. It means that you haven't extracted a lesson from an experience that you had. If you have red flags, because you'd already have turned that into wisdom. Counterpart. As soon as he started doing this like weird shit with like communication and like trying to create like some kind of weirdo trauma bond or something with me, I was like, what the I was like, what are you doing, man? Like, what is this? But see, because likely there was like this massive manipulation of the fake witch bitches, the frauds and the psychopaths operating in the background of his life and my life, but because there was like this intentional effort, if you're not willing to communicate, if you're not willing to be open and honest with me, and I've been patient, because I was doing the work on me, intentionally doing the work on me. And why would I let you inherit the best version of me, the blessing that is within me, my divine energy, if you're not even willing to communicate effectively with me? No. Dumbass, weirdo, crusty Dusty is in the background, leading him to believe that there's some domination or something else he has to do, or you have to have this, you have to have that. No, actually, he didn't need to have any of that. Like, literally all he had to do was have the strength of his character. That's it. Like, I don't stay attached to demonic energies. Like, as soon as he told me he was cohabitating, it's like, no, I'm not going to lead a door. I'm not going to have a door open to, like, what you're clearly not seeing through you. Because I already know I have a wicked old Jezebel spirit in the background. Like, literally, desperately trying to maintain some control over my life. When you don't get control over another person's life, God, you people are so weird. Control yourselves.